In March of 1956, a series of murders plagues a small area of Tokyo, where young women disappear only to turn up dead, limbs ripped from their bodies, and wombs torn out. Private Detective Tokisaka Reiji infiltrates Ouba Girls Academy as a teacher to investigate the missing girls. For these series of murders resembles a case from 6 years ago, one that took the life of his beloved fiancé. What mysteries lie within this psychological murder mystery? The answer may lie with a whimsical high school girl. Hi, my name is August, and this is Karu no Shoujo. Innocent Gray's Karu no Shoujo is a rather subdued detective murder mystery. Compared to a story full of epic plot twists and jaw-dropping reveals, Karu no Shoujo focuses more on its atmospheric tone and the emotional grief. In no way do you feel celebratory or victorious, like how some mystery stories/games tend to show. The culprit has already committed gruesome, horrific murders, and the lives of innocent young girls has been taken away. All that's left is the regret from those left behind, and I'm a big fan of this. Karu no Shoujo spends time showing the somber emotions of its characters. To those related to the victims, that emotional grief is a feeling that will stay with them. We see each person deal with it in their own way, whether it's keeping themselves occupied at work, physically confiding in another person, or drowning themselves in guilt. Our main detective, Reiji, included. Regrets frequent his mind. If only I was there sooner. What could I have done to prevent this? Why am I so helpless to save them? It's a good look into his headspace as he reacts to these murders. A gruesome reminder of his late beloved, her body tied to a cross, fetus surgically removed, and head missing from her body. A cruel irony that in order to do this job, someone has to end up dead first. It's pretty bleak how his closest therapists are high school girls, the same ones who might end up dead the next day. And how Karu no Shoujo displays these corpses is impressively ghastly. Throughout the story, the perspective will change to the murderer and detail the vicious actions and mental state of the culprit, all while Karu no Shoujo presents the brutally maimed bodies. It's quite excellently depicted and very unnerving as it forces you to watch. You'll hear arms being chopped to pieces, legs being sawed off, and read how it feels to tear out intestines and uteruses. These scenes aren't long, nor are they as intense as other extremely gory visual novels, but it's still grisly and emotionally tormenting to watch after bonding with these characters. Now, while the visual presentation of the gore scenes is great, the overall aesthetic is fitting as well, conveying Karu no Shoujo's gloomy tone. The muted color palette, the weary environments, and the time period of a post-war 1950s Japan gives the visual novel this old-fashioned realism to it, and for the type of story it is, I quite like this atmosphere. The piano tracks are also fantastic to listen to. I would even go so far as to use them casually as calming background music, my favorite one in particular being the piano version of the opening song. Side note, the footage you are currently seeing is from the Karu no Shoujo HD Voice full-size edition, using the Manga Gamer translation. While this footage is for video demonstration purposes, the regular version is still visually consistent, differences being the HD resolution and an added main character voice. Now, thankfully, Karu no Shoujo doesn't spend too much time being depressing. Reiji may be this seasoned, jaded veteran detective, but he's no match for his little sister and her high school gal pals. Each relationship Reiji has with the woman he meets has its own unique flavor of interesting dialogue and situations. His little sister Yukari is a reliable girl, often taking care of the household because Reiji obviously can't. Tojiko is a breath of fresh air in a rather depressing setting, thanks to her outspoken and go-getter attitude. Kyoko, the owner of the local cafe and longtime friend of Reiji, carries a similar burden, also having lost her loved one as well. And Toko, our poster girl heroine, as whimsical and mysterious as she is, allows Reiji to confide in her at his most vulnerable moments. While the supporting cast don't get much time to shine in the spotlight, they share their own insecurities and explain their troubles to Reiji, each with varying degrees of worriness. It gives them a very down-to-earth charm as you get to know more about these girls, which makes it that much more painful when they get thrust into danger. You can try to protect the girls as much as you like until Karu no Shoujo stabs you in the back because you were too smart for your own good. Karu no Shoujo has gameplay elements where you can pick which locations to visit, investigate crime scenes, and answer question prompts from Reiji. If you got an idea of a possible future victim or culprit, you can choose locations to get closer to them and talk to them. But if you're like me and attempt to get ahead of the curve, you'll end up dying like how I did. I get the point. It's supposed to support that thematic feeling of suffering from helplessness. However, it felt more like I was being punished instead, being forced into one of the many bad endings. Karu no Shoujo is exceptionally difficult to read without a walkthrough. Every day you are given multiple locations to visit. In each location, Reiji will have casual conversations with the cast. While some characters are consistent with their locations, others are more random in their appearances, and it's rather unintuitive on where to go next. This becomes a problem when some people hold critical information to the case, or even worse, following them leads you into a bad ending. For a visual novel with multiple endings, including a true ending, having a guide on hand is pretty much necessary. It's also very useful for obtaining the seemingly random H scenes scattered throughout the story. Sure, it's fun reading blind the first time through, but you know, I also like not dying. And for those going after that 100% completion, this just becomes an absolute nightmare. Because as much as I would love being smothered in a giant pair of titties like in any other visual novel, Reiji actually dies in this one. Kara Shoujo has the unfortunate problem of having 8 scenes that just don't really need to be there. That said, some of the 8 scenes runs off of the emotions of its characters. The amount of grief can be overwhelming and the characters indulge in physical bonding from that temporary release from the pain. But regardless of its context, readers may not want to see Reiji casually hooking up with some of the younger girls. In many ways, Kara Shoujo is brutal. Watching the murder scenes is painful, playing the game in general is incredibly hard without a guide, and most important of all, Reiji can't save everyone and people die. He can only come to terms with the loss and honor those who have passed and move on. This specific aspect of Kara Shoujo is one of the reasons why I like it so much. The charm in its melancholic presentation and emotion of its characters makes me appreciate this work much more than other murder mystery visual novels. So much that it makes me excited and curious to see what they do for its sequel in Kara Shoujo, the second episode. But for this title, Kara Shoujo gets a 3 out of 5 from me. Check out this video for another visual novel recommendation, or click here for a collection of visual novels to check out. Follow me on Twitter for more of my thoughts about visual novels, and I'll see you on the next video.